A Jeep Wrangler just hit 626,000 miles, with no rebuild, no secret mods, no special parts. So what's the difference? 10 simple habits that can push your Jeep Wrangler past 500,000 miles. How many are you missing? Number 10. Replace spark plugs before misfires start eating your wallet. Most Wrangler owners forget spark plugs exist until the engine starts running rough. On the 3.6 Pentastar, the factory interval sits around 100,000 miles, but real-world Wrangler use with dust, trail grime, and hard acceleration can wear them down much faster than that. Worn plugs cause misfires that tank your fuel economy and send unburned fuel straight into the catalytic converter. A replacement catalytic converter on a Wrangler runs well over $1,000, so skipping a $30 set of spark plugs is the worst trade you could ever make. Old plugs can actually seize inside the cylinder head if they sit past their service life. A simple swap turns into a full-day extraction nightmare at the shop with a bill to match. Always use the exact plug type your owner's manual calls for, whether that is NGK or Champion for your specific model year. While you are in there, check around the plug wells for pooling oil. Oil sitting in those wells means your valve cover gasket is leaking, and catching that early saves you from a much bigger problem spreading through your ignition system. Number 9. Inspect belts, hoses, and cooling fans before heat kills your engine. A perfectly healthy Wrangler can die in minutes if it overheats badly. Rubber belts and hoses dry out, crack, and weaken over time, and a serpentine belt can snap without giving you any warning at all. Your factory service schedule includes belt replacement at specific intervals, but you should be visually inspecting belts and hoses every single time you pop the hood. Squeeze your radiator hoses by hand. A healthy hose feels firm but flexible. A hose that feels mushy, rock hard, or shows cracks needs to go before it blows. Cooling fans are another silent killer. A fan that does not kick on when the engine gets hot will let temperatures climb into the danger zone fast, especially at low speeds or while sitting in traffic. If your Wrangler only overheats when you are crawling on a trail or idling in a parking lot, start by checking your cooling fans. Also take a close look at your radiator fins. If they are packed with bugs, mud, or trail debris, airflow gets choked off and your cooling system cannot do its job. A gentle cleaning with low-pressure water can make a real difference. One burst hose or one slipped belt leads to instant overheating, and a single overheat event can warp a cylinder head or blow a head gasket. Keeping heat away from your Wrangler buys more time for every part under the hood. But heat damage only threatens what is above the frame. Below the frame, there is a completely different enemy that destroys Wranglers from the outside in. Number 8. Fight rust before it eats your frame alive. Rust has killed more Wranglers than engine failure ever will. In the salt belt states across the Northeast and Midwest, road salt and brine exposure eat through frame rails, body mounts, and brake hardware faster than most owners realize. Forum after forum is filled with Wrangler owners who kept their engines running perfectly for 200,000 miles, only to junk the rig because the frame rotted out underneath them. If you live anywhere that uses road salt, wash your undercarriage thoroughly after every winter drive. Do not just rinse the outside of the Wrangler and call it done. Get a pressure washer or angled hose attachment underneath and flush the frame rails, suspension components, and every spot where salt and mud can hide. Pay extra attention to the area around body mounts and behind the rear axle, where water collects and sits. For serious protection, apply a lanolin-based rust preventive like fluid film or wool wax to your entire undercarriage and inside the frame rails at least once a year before winter hits. These oil-based coatings creep into seams and crevices that rubberized undercoatings cannot reach. Rubberized coatings can actually trap moisture underneath and speed up corrosion if they crack or chip over time. Keep your drain holes clear so water does not pool inside enclosed areas. A Wrangler with a perfect engine sitting on a rotted frame is headed straight to the junkyard, and that is a fate no owner should accept. Quick side note, everything I'm talking about in this video is part of a full system. I actually put it all together in my Jeep longevity guide, step by step, so you're not guessing or missing anything that could cost you later. The link is in the description below. Number 7. Rotate tires at every oil change and check alignment yearly. Wrangler owners love running 33s and 35s, but bigger rubber puts a serious extra load on your steering system, brakes, and suspension with every single mile you drive. Most people let their tires wear unevenly for months and then act surprised when the Wrangler starts pulling, vibrating, or eating through ball joints twice as fast as it should. Rotate at every oil change without exception. Keep air pressure at the PSI listed on your door jamb sticker, not the number stamped on the tire sidewall. Those two numbers mean completely different things, and running the wrong pressure will chew through your tread and hurt your ride quality at the same time. Get a proper four-wheel alignment at least once a year, or any time you smack a pothole hard enough to feel it through the steering wheel. One solid impact can knock your alignment out of spec, and once that happens, your tires and suspension components are quietly destroying themselves every time you drive. But worn tires and bad alignment are only part of the equation, because what your engine breathes matters just as much as what your tires roll on. Number 6. Replace every filter early, especially if your Wrangler sees dust. Your Wrangler's engine breathes through its air filter, and most rigs see more dust in a single trail run than a sedan encounters in 6 months. A clogged engine air filter forces the motor to work harder and lets fine dirt particles slip past into the cylinders, where they act like sandpaper inside on pistons and cylinder walls. The damage builds up invisibly until it becomes expensive. Check your engine air filter after every off-road trip and swap it out when it looks dirty. Do not wait for the scheduled interval if you drive on gravel roads or dusty trails on a regular basis. Replace the cabin filter once a year, too, because a dirty cabin filter chokes your HVAC system and makes your heater and AC work overtime unnecessarily. Pay attention to the PCV valve as well. On the Pentastar, a stuck PCV valve can cause increased oil consumption and internal sludge buildup. Wrangler forums are full of owners complaining about burning oil, and a $5 fix could have saved a lot of them from chasing expensive phantom problems for months. But filters only protect what comes in from the outside. What protects the moving parts underneath your Wrangler is a completely different story. Number 5. Inspect all steering and suspension parts at every oil change. This is where a lot of Wrangler owners lose their rigs without ever realizing it. Bigger tires and lift kits accelerate wear on tie rod ends, ball joints, track bar bushings, and wheel bearings. Old power steering fluid carries microscopic metal shavings that slowly grind down your steering pump from the inside. By the time you hear the whine, internal damage is already done. At every oil change, get underneath and check a few things. Is there play in the tie rod ends? Are the track bar bolts still torqued to factory spec? Do the ball joints have any slop when you grab the tire and shake it? Uneven tire wear and a steering wheel that wanders on the highway are clear warning signs that something needs attention right away. If you have ever heard of the famous Wrangler death wobble, this is exactly where it starts. A worn bushing or a single loose bolt creates just enough play for the solid front axle to oscillate violently at highway speed. Prevention comes down to one thing: regular inspection of every front end component. A Wrangler that tracks straight and feels boring on the highway is the healthiest setup you can own. Number 4. Flush brake fluid every 24 months regardless of mileage. Your Wrangler's factory service schedule calls for DOT-4 brake fluid replacement every 2 years flat. Mileage has nothing to do with it. Time is what kills brake fluid because it absorbs moisture from the air through microscopic pores in the rubber hoses. You cannot see it happening, and you cannot feel it in the pedal until something goes seriously wrong. Absorbed moisture lowers the boiling point significantly, so during a hard stop coming down a steep trail with a loaded Wrangler, your brakes could go spongy or fade right when you need them most. Water inside the system also corrodes brake lines and caliper pistons from the inside out. Flush all 4 corners every 2 years and refill with fresh DOT-4. While you are already under there, inspect every brake line, rubber hose, and caliper hardware. Wranglers that see mud, water crossings, or salted winter roads take a serious beating in these areas. A preventative service now is nothing compared to a full brake system rebuild that proper maintenance would have prevented entirely. Number 3. Change coolant before your engine overheats even once. Some Wrangler manuals say coolant can last up to 10 years or 150,000 miles. Long factory intervals give owners a false sense of security that leads to neglect. Coolant chemicals break down over time and stop protecting against corrosion. Old coolant slowly eats away at internal components like gaskets, the heater core, and the radiator from the inside. On the 3.6 Pentastar, a blown head gasket repair can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000, depending on the shop. Running degraded coolant only makes a bad situation worse. Do a complete drain and refill with the correct coolant type earlier than your manual suggests. Use HOAT coolant only, and never mix it with the green universal stuff from the parts store. Check coolant levels every single month. A slowly dropping level means a hidden leak exists somewhere, and finding it now costs almost nothing compared to finding it on the side of the highway with steam pouring from under your hood. Number 2. Service transmission and drivetrain fluids early, and never flush the transmission. Transmission fluid controls shift quality and keeps everything cool under pressure. On the Wranglers automatic, overheated fluid is the #1 transmission killer. One group never changes the fluid at all, while another pays for a power flush service that knocks loose debris and clogs internal passages. And here's where a lot of Wrangler owners get burned. They either never touch the transmission fluid, or they wait until it starts shifting rough, thinking that's the sign it needs service. But by that point, internal wear has already started. Transmission fluid doesn't just lubricate, it carries heat away and protects internal components under pressure. As that fluid breaks down, it loses its ability to cool and protect, which causes everything inside to run hotter and wear faster. Quietly. Sometimes you'll notice small signs, like delayed shifts or slight hesitation. But a lot of the damage happens before anything feels seriously wrong. And once a Wrangler transmission starts slipping, you're not fixing it with fresh fluid anymore. Use the drain and fill method instead. Drain old fluid, refill with fresh, and repeat over 2 or 3 service intervals to gradually replace everything without shocking the internal system. Do not stop at the transmission either. Your Wrangler runs 4-wheel drive, which means the front differential, rear differential, and transfer case all have their own separate fluids that need attention. Anytime water reaches your axle seals, change those fluids immediately because water contamination destroys bearings and gears very quickly. Number 1. Change the oil religiously and treat your Wrangler like the severe duty vehicle it actually is. This is the foundation of everything else on this list. The Pentastar V6 that made it to 626,000 miles ran on Valvoline 5W20 with consistent oil changes at roughly 8,000-mile intervals. Blackstone Laboratories has tested over 1,000 Wrangler oil samples and found that protective additives typically drop below effective levels after around 6,000 to 8,000 miles under normal driving conditions. But here is what most people get wrong. Almost every Wrangler qualifies as severe duty use. Stop-and-go traffic, short trips, towing, dust, mud, and off-roading all count. Under these conditions, your factory manual recommends oil changes as often as every 4,000 miles. Short trips are the silent engine killer because the motor never gets hot enough to burn off moisture and fuel contamination. And this is where most Wrangler owners completely underestimate the damage. They think, I barely drove today, so it's fine. But short trips are actually worse than long drives. Every time you start your engine cold, fuel and moisture build up inside the oil. And if the engine doesn't stay running long enough to fully heat up, that contamination never burns off. It just sits there, slowly breaking down the oil's ability to protect your engine. Do that over and over again, day after day, and you're basically running your engine on degraded oil without realizing it. That's how engines that should last 300,000 miles start having issues before 150,000. Every time you change the oil, change the filter with it. Fresh oil through an old filter defeats the entire purpose. Keep receipts and document every service. A solid maintenance record protects your investment and ensures your Wrangler is ready for the next 100,000 miles. 500,000 miles doesn't come down to luck. It's the small habits you repeat over time. So be honest, how many of these are you actually doing? And if you want the exact system that keeps Jeeps running for hundreds of thousands of miles, remember, I put everything step by step in my longevity guide linked below. See you next time.